know, Coach. I know because I know both of you guys are in that Louisville area, so he was telling about definitely it's pretty wet down there. How are you guys doing? Have you sustained any damage or anything? What's going on with you guys down there?
Well, currently, I'm fortunate enough where I live at in my home. It's no problem, no issues.
Hmm.
But I can't say that for the rest of my city. So
Right.
right now, I'm doing my civic duty by trying to do what I can to keep this city dry and keep the waterways away from everybody
Appreciate you.
else's home. So
Yes, sir.
I'm out here putting my work in myself.
Sounds good.
But,
Sounds good.
a black man sent me a message asking me if I could tap in, and I told the brother, I said, well, why not? I always enjoy coming over on the BMU channel and hanging out with you guys whenever I get the opportunity. So tonight is an opportunity. So I'm hanging out with my brother Ben.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you. All right, let's get into this. So again, obviously there was some major college championships over the weekend. So Florida national champions, certain Houston, been there 7 times, and unfortunately, just like the Susan Lucci Award, can't win the big one in the big game. Obviously, I go all the way back to 1982, five slammer jammer, Jimmy Valvano, the alley oop to win it at the end here. Houston was up certainly the bulk of this game. They had up to a 12-point lead, certainly in this game, but unfortunately they had problems with scoring down the stretch. And I thought to me, this was like a reminiscent game, very similar to, like I said, going back to the 80s. When you talk about Georgetown and like Georgetown, Villanova, the score, it was, obviously it was a contested game, good defense and everything. So it kind of was like a throwback. You didn't have like a 90 point scoring team that were going up and down. These guys seemed like they took their defense very seriously. So it was very reminiscent of that, but a kind of sloppy game overall. I mean, 3-point shooting really wasn't there. What was your thoughts on the game overall? And did Florida win it, or more so Houston lost it? I just get the buzz that Houston, I think, lost this game. And Kelvin, I think how we managed the clock in the last 90 seconds of the game, I think that was pretty bad as well. But what was your thoughts on the game overall? And just that stretch run, how do you think it how do you think it panned out?
It's funny you say that, man. It's kind of karma. I mean, the way that Duke lost is the same way that Houston lost the other day. I mean, what's the difference? They collapsed. They found a way to collapse in a worst possible time. And then the fact that they didn't get a shot off, that was that's sad.
Hmm.
That's you don't expect that from guy. I was talking to my son last night as he was cutting the grass, and I said, man, if they were freshmen in college and on that big of a stage with that big of an audience and with all those expectations and all that pressure on, I expect something like that, right? But for guys who are seniors, elders in the college ranks, what I'm saying, was in a big game last year in the Elite Eight and coming up short. I expected more from that last play of the game,
Hmm.
and you could tell Hamlin, he was disturbed about. He was hurt about that. You could tell during his press conference. He said, "Yeah, I don't know what happened." What I'm saying? It's one of those things you don't want to throw your players on the bus, but
Hmm.
at the same time, it's kind of hard not to. And if he did, I couldn't blame him. But overall, I thought it was a great game, a very entertaining game. Uh, Florida's been doing what Florida did the last 10 games in the regular season and the SEC regular season. They made that run in the tournament and they continue to win. And
Yeah.
with that being said, congratulations to the Gators for winning their third national championship in college basketball.
Indeed, indeed. Shout out to brother Shawnee. Good to have you with us tonight. How you doing, sir?
What's going on, fellas? I'm good. I'm good.
Good,
What's going on,
awesome.
Sean?
Yes, sir.
Everything.
Yeah, what was your thoughts on the game? Yeah, see, I got some stats here. I thought now look, I mean, neither one of these teams are offensive juggernauts, especially Houston. We knew that going in, but you knew they were hard nosed defensively. But you see the 3-point shooting, 24, both of them 25% and under on the 3-point shooting. Just like I said, kind of an ugly game when you consider it. But certainly Certainly, again, a grinded out game. This was going to be, more so like a test of will, more so than skill. I thought, in this contest. So I wasn't surprised by the outcome either way. I was actually surprised that Houston was up by as much as 12. But again, those plays down the stretch, the last, I don't know if Kelvin, and again, I feel bad for him because I wanted so long for him to win one. But I thought that, again, how he handled the last two possessions, the last three possessions, quite frankly, I just don't think he handled that well. But overall, I think I was overall entertained. But what say you? And again, shout out to Coach for being with us as well. Good to have you in, my brother. What was your thoughts on the game and just that ending? Again, the question is, did Gators more so win it or did Houston blow it?
Well, I guess with Houston, they just had back-to-back games of it. They had to fight back, and they literally shut down Duke in the closing, 4 or 5 minutes to win that game.
Yeah.
Florida, cause Florida came back, but they had, on the run they had, Houston was able to basically stop them right when they basically tied the game. So it was like a 2 3 minute stretch where they kept having ties and lead change. They couldn't pull away from Houston. Houston always had an elite defense. They're super scrappy, but their offense, especially this year, because they lost a key weapon last year. I forgot his name. They lost a key weapon offensively last year. They basically just kind of shoot up threes per se, and they rely heavy on offensive rebounds.
Hmm.
They're super scrappy, and I caught Hink at the tail of his take. They they had that stretch when Florida came back because it basically like Florida hit a wall. They was able to come back, but once they tied the game, they hit a wall themselves. Like
Yeah.
Houston clamped down even more,
Right.
and then Houston had like 4 straight turnovers. And the thing about them is they just don't have that offensive player they can give the ball. During that time when Florida was coming back, it wasn't like they clamped down Houston. Houston was taking terrible shots, and then they was just like it was a lot of one-on-one play that Houston was doing. You saw no motion in the offense. Only time you really saw motion on the offense is when they did out of bounds play. Kelvin Simpson, he did a pretty good job of out of bounds calls, but when they're actually on the floor of the game, it was like the point guards was just literally running, trying to shake somebody at the 3 point line, waiting for a big man to come set a pick for them. Florida has good defense, so when they came out there to meet them on the other side, it's like Houston started playing with the ball more, and Houston had good looks in the paint, but they was missing them. Um, it was just like you saw a lot of one-on-one play, and that last play, I remember I was watching because it was Sharp who has been struggling all game. Sharper's he played a pretty decent game versus Duke. With Florida, it was all about Clayton Jr. Houston clamped him down, but I don't think Florida would have won that game if way in the first half when Richards was hitting key 3 pointers. That what kept Florida in the game. Even though Houston afterwards stretched out to a 12-point lead in the second half, I think that game could have really gotten ugly because Richards was basically keeping them in the game at that point because nobody else was scoring.
Yeah.
And then at that end, I just remember when Cryer had the ball and he passed it to Sharp. Sharp knew that he had a defender basically coming trailing him right behind him, but he still tried to do this turn around and jump shot 3 pointer. I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, that was a perfect time for a pump fake. Sidestep him because he had the time. He just rushed it. And, and then cause you saw as soon as he got the ball, he tried to turn around and shoot the ball, but he noticed the defender, he just dropped it. He couldn't touch it no more.
Right.
So it was just I don't know if Houston had ran out of timeouts, because I believe they had a timeout. They would have definitely crafted up a better design play.
Mhm.
Even Sampson in his post, he even mentioned, which I think it always bothers me now with the younger players today. You down by 2. You don't need a 3. You don't always need a 3. Even Sampson, we were just down by 2. We didn't need a 3-pointer. But you know, with the young folks, they always trying to go with the kill shot, and a lot of times it's a bad looking three, so you almost like depending on luck to make it. If you got an offensive set and you got a wide open look, fine, that's a great shot. But if you don't need a three, but it was just hard for them because during that time, at the end of the game, the last 4 minutes, when they had them 4 straight turnovers, they just could not run any type of offensive set. You saw Cryer, I think him and Sharp, they was on the perimeter, ran straight into the paint with a big man on, they lost the ball. They didn't even get up a shot. So I'm like, what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? And Florida's like, well, hell yeah, I don't want the game. We might as well make these. And Florida almost gave the game away when Houston tried to clamp him again. And he did that cross-court pass too far, and they was running towards the ball, and Houston hit him. That's what got the foul. He made 1 or 2 free throws. But it was a crazy game, which is what I was liking. It was an all 4-1 seed because both games in the Final Four was good games. Those styles make fights, and all these styles complemented each other. It made good games. So that's why I wasn't really missing the point of a Cinderella not making it, because you knew you was going to get 3 potential good games, the 2 semifinals and the finals, because all of them on the same level, because all 4 teams at one part of the season was ranked number 1.
Gotcha. Coach, what was your thoughts on the game, sir?
Sonny, man, I know you crying because the Houston Cougars lost, man.
Man,
but
my sister, she's a U of H alumnus, so she was definitely, I was like,
they panicked. The players panicked at the end. They the oldest team in the whole thing this year.
Their main player looks like he's about 30 years old. I'm looking at my own play, man. He looked like he's about 35 out there.
Listen, they panicked at the end. The wrong guy was taking the shot. He shouldn't
I agree.
Have been
Cryer should not have been put in that position. No.
They should have been running a little bit, but nobody was really hot. One thing, the way I can tell if a player's really in the game is that at least by the second quarter, they have some type of perspiration coming off their brow. Most of these guys hadn't broke a sweat all game. And the one guy that was hot, he was nowhere in the play towards the end. The little tall, skinny guy, I forget his name, the one that sort of saved the game in the Final Four and hit the jump shot against Duke. He was pretty hot, but didn't see him late in the game. The wrong guy was struggling. He took the wrong. I think if Calvin Sampson, if he designed that play, then he panicked also, because the guy that shot that I guess he had tried to attempt to shot, it was a bad shot. They panicked down the stretch. They should have just kept running the offense and, took it inside when they had the chance. But everybody was trying to shoot the 3 and be a hero, and that's what happened.
Well, again, I mean, to Shawnee's point earlier, if they had another timeout, I mean, you had the time to craft the play. It's like Kelvin just said, kind of just let him play.
They just came out of timeout. Came out of timeout.
Again, I don't know, but was there a play craft? It didn't look like there was a play that was crafted, or Florida broke it up. But yeah, man, I was very disappointed at the end. Again, Houston 7 times to the Final Four, and again they come up short. And once again, hearts are broken in Houston because of the because of the poor play down the stretch. And certainly they were there to be that game was there to be had. But switching over certainly to the women's side of things. So obviously, shout out to UConn once again winning the national championship. This was supposed to be, I thought going into this would be, I know CJ, he asked the question last week, like, where does this place Dawn Staley in terms of her coaching legacy? And, would that be on the line? And I thought this would be certainly a transitional time, that if she could beat basically the GOAT, then certainly she would definitely be up there with the Pat Summits of the world and all those other things. But, certainly earlier in the year, certainly, UConn's been, has handled them. Now, granted, I don't think this is certainly the best South Carolina team ever. I mean, last year they lost some the 6'7" girl who's in the NBA right now. Certainly not as talented, but certainly they were able to gut it out and get to the final. But certainly they just weren't there. They limited UConn to 3-point shooting in the first half, but they just went inside, and they had no answers. And you saw the frustration on the sidelines with her, and it just seems like now Gino is still the man on this level. So, again, hard game to watch. Felt for Dawn in that stay. But Gino, once again, has come up as and we're going to talk about that in the next segment. But just wanted to get your thoughts on the games. Not a whole lot to talk about because it was so dominant. But start with Hank. What was your thoughts on the game, and where do you think this places Dawn in terms of coaching? You think she can get there, or is he back? Because UConn was off the floor for a minute, but looks like even now they seem to be firmly established once again. What was your thoughts on the game, or those questions?
I look at it like this. Dawn is young in the coaching game, so she's got plenty of time. I mean, you look at Gino. Gino's 72 years old, man. But he's 72 years old. He coached for a long time. His last title was in 2016. He was due. He's one of the greatest coach. Look, we can't just say greatest women's basketball coach. They're going to sell him short. Man, you got to say he's one of the greatest coaches in basketball. Period. You have to put that out there. He won his 12th title on Sunday. His 12th NCAA title for girls. Man, that's spectacular, man. No other woman can say that. No other coach, as far as college basketball, men or women, can say that. He could say that and stand along with it, and won it at the same school. When UConn wasn't what the UConn it is now. UConn was just a small city on the map. Now it's a major program. The men's basketball is doing great. Women's basketball doing great. Hey, man, they got it rolling up right as far as basketball, man. So, look, man, congratulations to them young ladies, man. They was tough. They got a couple of young players that's going to be coming back. The beautiful thing about South Carolina is South Carolina's young. You know what I'm saying? They young. They led by a sophomore, a true sophomore. And, you could tell her leadership ability is just not there yet. You could tell by how towards the end of the game she was really pressing. She wasn't scoring a lot. All of a sudden now she wants to start scoring and showboating and doing what she normally does when she's got it going on. You could just see the youth, and Coach Staley's gonna coach her up during the summertime and work with her. And, you're gonna get some more veterans, some transfers. Please, the portal's wide open, and even with the ladies, man, them ladies are skipping and leaving school, going to the next school for the biggest bag. So she's gonna get some girls in there, man. They're gonna be fine. UConn's gonna be good. Because you got two Hall of Fame type coaches, the two winningest coaches in college basketball right now. So they just went head to head, and the better coach won that night. So congratulations to the UConn ladies.
Shawnee?
Well, I think, UConn. I was hearing throughout the season. One thing about this, I heard people complaining definitely after the men's game about the time. Here locally, we Central, I think it came on nearly 8 o'clock. East Coast, 9 o'clock. I don't know why they be having these games on so late for the men's. And then on the women's side, I missed majority of the game because it came on early Sunday afternoon.
Sunday afternoon, yeah.
I'm like, who's in charge of these times? But they, I just knew it wasn't the same South Carolina. A lot of their games, especially later in the tournament, they had to gut it out. It wasn't the same because it was Cardoso. They was missing a bully ball in the paint from last year. And UConn was just basically able to, keep their scoring. As you can see in these two snapshots, they had their weight offensively with them. And usually South Carolina is a good defensive team. But like he said, they got a relatively young team. Now, they did get a hellified transfer, though, as soon as the postseason was over with. Florida State, they have a guard that can create her own shot. And she transferred over to South Carolina. So that's going to be a completely different. Cause I think that was one of the issues this year. They didn't have a player that really could, break a defender down, almost like we was talking about in Houston for the most part. The young lady from Florida State going over there. I think she was averaging between 24, 28 points, 26 points. So she could definitely get her shot off. So that's going to be huge with her going to that program at South Carolina. So pretty much with UConn. A lot of the, Pace Beckers definitely got majority of attention, but they was a good team. You saw it. I think South Carolina going to be right back there, next year. you see, Don Staley. You could see with her, she takes losses hard, like any coach. But you can just see how she, was really just hitting her hard on the own. It was a little close. I don't know if y'all saw the clip during the game when it was released. You saw Staley. She was just really just
yeah, she definitely wore
never
emotions
beating
on the
herself
sleeve.
up or whatnot. Just couldn't believe what she was seeing from a team. But
Mhm.
she'll definitely have them young ladies right back, I believe, in the Final Four next season. UConn, will they be there? Oh, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, I think they have a chance, but USC, once they get Juju back, is gonna make they way back over there. They gonna try to force. They probably gonna be on a mission. I think UCLA. I don't know how old them young ladies are. I think they have a UCLA was a good team themselves. They just made a buzzsaw on UConn. It was just
Mhm.
UConn was just they were destined to win this year. They were just like, you know, y'all was in our way. We got beat. Beckers was hurt, a couple of seasons ago, so they took their momentum or whatnot. I don't know if it was last season or a couple of seasons ago, but now they was full strength and they was on a mission. So, but I think Texas.
Let me ask you, if Juju was there for USC, you think we get a different outcome, or you think it didn't matter?
I mean, you just be looking at Juju, and I look at Juju with USC the way Caitlin Clark was with Iowa. Basically, they were their team's focal point offensively. They were the offense. And, Iowa was not the same team when Caitlin Clark left. Even after they had their recruiting class.
Mhm.
Juju, even though USC went on and they played 2 games without her. They won the Sweet 16 and the
Yeah, they got to the final.
Yeah.
They got to the Final
Yeah.
Four. So I mean, shout
so
out to them.
they played better, but I'm looking at comments now. Trey saying Juju career is over. I don't think so, man. I mean,
I pray
she's had
not.
a knee injury. I mean, it's a common thing, and plus the doctors nowadays are so advanced. They will get her back. It's just you just hate to see a young player go through that so early in their career. But the doctors they gonna get her back in no time. It's just don't rush her back. Allow her to rehab. I believe we spoke about it last week. The same doctor that operated on Kobe and some other high-profile pro athletes are going to be operating on Juju.
Yeah,
She probably already had the surgery. So
she did. She already had
yeah.
it.
Go ahead, Coach. What was your thought? What was your thoughts on the game and outcome? And then we'll go into the next portion. Here. What was your thoughts overall? This
It's what I thought it would be with what's her name, Paige. She just wasn't going to. She just wasn't going to be denied. Mm-hmm. She's waited, for 5. She's been there 5 years or so. She just wasn't going to be denied this year. I think it was just her time because she was just willing her team. It seemed like every game she was scoring double figures. She was steals, rebounds. She was all over the court. So I think it was just her time. And I didn't see any team once Juju went down at the leadership that UConn had. She's once Juju went down, USC, it was just a matter of time. UCLA, to me, they was a Cinderella. They may be back, but maybe in the final, in Sweet 16, but it's going to be hard to repeat unless somebody emerges into a superstar. South Carolina, I would say if they get in the recruits and the transfers, as we say, I see them being back because most of their team is coming back with more experience. Don Staley, she's just young as a coach. And, to me, she's still one of the greatest already. 3 championships. And they won it last year. So you really can't be, it is what it is. They made it to the championship. I was hoping for a repeat, but Paige just wasn't going to be denied, man. So
gotcha.
You get players like that, they're going to always pull it out. Just, so.
Definitely. Just one nod to super chats. Again, CJ, always a supporter of the Black Men Unfiltered Network and in this program. Anyone besides Duke is a win for America. Shout out to CJ for that. UConn still sucks. So again, Anton, straight up for my Jersey brother, still salty over UConn. And then again, CJ, again, as a former D2 for the Lady South Carolina team, this is a blessing. You can have all summer to watch UConn get their SBs to come back. So again, certainly no love for UConn. But speaking of UConn And I think, Hank, you kind of teed it up as far as the point I was going to make, and this is one of the big discussions of the night. I don't think there's any question now, if there was going into this, whether or not Gino was the greatest women's basketball coach of all time. You see the record there. I'm asking the question tonight: is he possibly the greatest coach in American sports? So I know you got Phil Jackson's got his 11 rings with Chicago and the Lakers. You got Red Auerbach had 7 as a coach, and I think 5 as a GM. You got Bill Belichick's got 6 Super Bowls and whatnot. But this level of sustained, because again, it's not like UConn went anywhere. It's not like he hit rock bottom. In that run in the early 2000s where he won 7, 8, 9 in a row or something, like some crazy number that he won. And now, even with this new situation, even now with the transfer portal, even now with the NIL, which drove some coaches out of collegiate sports, that essentially he's been able to sustain it. I think Hank made the point earlier, there was nothing at UConn, nothing. Built it up from the ground up. So can we make an argument that he might very well be the greatest ever? And I would make a case for that, especially in this era. This in the Me Too era, the fact that he's had a clean program, no scandals, nothing going on with that, and he's been able to win with the new dynamic. I think you could put him up there, if not the best, certainly so I'm talking about all professional sports. Could he be ranked as the best? So again, we'll start with Hank. And where do you rank him as far as any sport, any American sport? So I don't care if it's NHL, NBA, NFL, any sport. Does he need to be mentioned up there with those coaching greats?
Yeah, I definitely think he needs to be mentioned up there. But something, it's funny. I heard about a soccer coach that won like 21 titles. I said, man, you got to be kidding me. So I think that I want to say the soccer coach from either UCLA or Florida, and I'm hoping I'm on the right sport. I think it was a girls soccer coach at Florida or UCLA. Somebody might want to fact check me, but 21 titles, that's a lot of titles. But please believe me, Gino was right there with him. He's definitely the best in college basketball. He's definitely best probably in, like I said, pro sports. You gonna have some people gonna argue and fight against it. Yeah, you went in 12. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, you didn't go in it over a long period of time at the same school, and you was part of the building program of the school that you were doing it at. Yeah, it's hard to argue that he's not. So shout out to Gino, man, for 12 titles. That's really saying something. Man, his age, I'm sure he's probably at the age right now, man. Some of these young ladies are getting on my nerves. I can't keep dealing with these young girls. He getting older, your patience ain't there no more, brother Billy. You older than me. And sure, Shotty probably running up the road with his age too. I don't know for sure, but you get a certain age, man. Some of these, you just don't have the patience no more. But that old head, man, he keeps finding a way to be patient with the young lady, even with the NIL deals. You have to negotiate with the girls' agents and family members, and AAU coaches got to cut the deal with everybody. Everybody got the hands out, and yet he still find a way to get his young ladies to go out there and produce, compete, and win. So, man, yeah, he's got to be.
Mm-hmm. Just want to shout out Anton. Anton, I didn't mean to forget about hockey. I know you're affinity for it or whatnot, but I thought hockey was Canadian, but I'll just leave that there. But in any event, Coach, let's go to Coach this time. Where would you, is he in the conversation as a great? So again, we got, shout out to Trey Taylor in the chat tonight, John Wooden, obviously he's got 10 championships, Nick Saban, in college sports. But interesting, Nick Saban when NIL and all that kind of stuff came out, he left the game. So Geno was able to win with NIL or whatnot. So it's like he's found different ways to win in different eras and different generations. This is going on like 3 decades. He's been relevant in the sport. But what say you, Coach, in terms of the combo?
I would definitely put him as one of the top in college history. Because of course, women's is definitely different from men's, as we know, but top 5 maybe all time, but definitely number 1 as far as college, then as far as where you rank them compared to, when you're talking NBA, whether it's football, basketball. So I give them in the number 1 college ever, obvious, with 12 championships, with what has it been, 3 decades now, 3 different
Yeah,
eras.
so Trey says recency bias. It's been 3 decades now. So how's that recency bias? But
I don't see it being touched no time in our lifetime. But I do think, top 5. I give him top 5, just what he was able to do. So
CJ's gonna want a refund on his super chats after the show, but I'm just throwing it out there. But go ahead. You guys are down on the game. My goodness.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Shawnee.
They got something against women versus men.
I'll guarantee they can't even shoot a jump shot.
But my thing
and made the point about dunking basketball. That's the thing. I thought you got to be a good coach if you don't have the dunk in the game. I thought that made you a better coach, not because again, you can always get some horses who can run up and down and just beat you with raw athleticism. But you talk about the purity of the game. I would think that would count for something. But but we're not going to win this argument with the Chad tonight. Chad is resulting. But Shawnee, you want to stick your neck out there, or
I think Geno definitely deserve to be on the Mount Rushmore of coaching. Now, where you place him, because like Coach brought up, this is over 3 decades of winning championships, man. So that is not a small feat. Only thing about it's just different when you saying greatest coach of all time. Now you go on college and pros, and it's just in college a big theme with them is recruiting. Pros, your team just draft the players, and you basically kind of left with what's available on the draft board. When you
Phil Jackson didn't. Who did he bring to the Lakers or Chicago? I mean, the plate was kind of made for him. So
yeah, so in college, especially once UConn was winning, especially during Geno's early years when they was literally just dominating women's basketball to the point where people I'm not even going to watch the Final Four. I already know who's going to win. He was recruiting all the great players. So I think with Geno, and I think, and y'all was bringing the college soccer coach or whatnot, I think parity plays a huge part with it because Geno just built such a monster. Women college basketball was not. I think there's more parity in it in today's generation than years past, especially with UConn, because you saw how dominant they were. I mean, there was another team that could just compete with them. They always had all the greatest women players in the college game. So, that's no knock on Geno because he was recruiting them. So it's kind of hard when you're trying to put that greatest coach from a college level to, trying to cross it over to pros. Now, if you want to keep it at the college level, Geno, he's up there with the Nick Sabans. He already has more championships than Pat Summitt. I know people are already trying to put Dawn Staley up there, but Dawn Staley not up there with Pat Summitt. She still got 5 more championships to win. So, when you just sticking it to college, Geno is definitely up there as one of the greatest college coaches of all time. Now you trying to go to other programs that just don't, hockey, especially hockey. Hockey is basically a territorial sport. I mean, hockey is not really talked about. It barely even exists down here in the South. It's just basically a northeastern sport. So when you looking at what's they call the Frozen Four, if you ever watch them, it seems like there's always the same 4 teams. They kind of rotate within like 4 or 6 teams. That always keep making it. It's like lacrosse. So I'm like, man, what's the where's the parity in that? Y'all just damn near play, drop the puck game one, guaranteed to make the Frozen Four, when it comes. It's just, but college basketball on the women's side, I think they definitely, he's definitely up there. He's definitely the top women's coach. He's definitely maybe the top one or two in college sports, period. When he talking about, I'll just put him on the Mount Rushmore when it just comes to coaching, period. When the four major sports, well, I just say three because I don't really know too much about hockey: basketball, football, and baseball, both pros and collegiate level. Because he made 12 championships is 12 championships, and he's the one who built, like you say, Mr. Bennett. UConn wasn't doing nothing before he got there.
Right.
He's the one who built that juggernaut. He's the one who led that to basically people just like, man, it's aforementioned that they're gonna win the championship.
Yeah,
That
and there's
all
nothing,
started
and
with
there's
Geno.
nothing in UConn. I mean, if you've ever, people say all the time, there's nothing to do up there. It's like
If there's something up there as far as any local thing, that's because of Geno. How right now the reason why Colorado gave Prime that huge contract, because I heard the business that came up there, since he's been up there, he really boosted that market. Same thing Geno did in stores. So I just, I see the chat. They
yeah.
because he's a women's
And don't mention
basketball
Dean
coach.
Smith. Look, I mean, he's not even better than Coach K. I mean, guy won 2 championships in like 50 years
Yeah,
in North Carolina.
them boys
Leave
acting
leave that
like
man
Coach
alone.
Pee Wee.
Yeah,
He ain't
leave
even
that
John
guy.
Thompson. Shit.
Leave that guy. Don't even bring Dean Smith into the combo. Let's move on, though. Let's move to the NBA. Great conversation. I appreciate you guys for joining in the chat. Undefeated as usual. To continue this on. Yes, we don't try to be too PC here, but we try to stir you guys up. We try to do it the right way here. But in any event, let's move on. Our next story going to the NBA. So those are the stories. So again, Ja Morant fined $75,000 for the gun sign. And someone had posted that within this year, this sign has been used on more than one occasion. No fines except for Ja. We all know about his history with the gun charges and whatnot, and so the question is, I mean, is he being unfairly targeted because of this, or do you think the whole thing with the gun sign is the NBA is this out of proportion? Their emphasis on this, or any signs for that matter, the choke sign, the throat slash sign, all that kind of stuff. I know Hank and Coach. I know you guys have been, you guys have coached and seen that stuff, and especially in college basketball, there's always been, things that have been brought into the game. Is it just an overreaction overall to the signs in general? And do you think he's being unfairly targeted by the league? Now, I would say this. I think his response to it, wasn't certainly a wise response that he had to it. But is he being unfairly targeted because it is given also that other players have been using these signs and nothing from the league office, no calls, no nothing. So I'll start with Shawnee. What do you think of Ja's current situation, and do you think he's a target right now?
Man, I think this is basically a sign of today's society. How I guess if you get in trouble, folks are always trying to point the finger. Hey, they doing it over there, and then nobody looking at them right now. You the one who got in trouble. And in this case with Ja has nobody but blame but himself. Ja is the one who was caught twice brandishing guns on video. Ja was the one who basically, he got in trouble the first time. Silver spoke with him, and then he gonna sit there and do it again very close after the meeting he had with Silver. So that's when those two, his first 2 suspensions was a total of about 33 games, because he got in trouble, met with the commissioner, and immediately did it again. Then fast forward now. He did this little gun. Now, dude, you don't have no grace for this. Your image, this is a part of your image now. You created this image. You did the gun sign one time. The NBA didn't do anything, but they warned you, don't do it again. Later on the same week, you're gonna do it again, and then now you get fined $75,000. So I don't care if other NBA players was caught doing it. They don't have the immediate recent history that you do with doing this. They have not yet once met with the commissioner because you actually was caught with a gun on the video. This is not no neighborhood basketball league. Whatnot. These are highly professionals. They trying to keep a certain image. Gunplay, especially portraying a certain image, they do not want that. This is a private league. You don't have to join this. You don't want to abide by it. You can go, but you the one. You taking their money. You taking all their millions of money. You sign on a contract. So if you want to do this and you want to play in this league, all they saying is like, dude, we don't want this image because you representing us. You representing us. We don't want this gunplay image as far as any association with the NBA. Now, especially now with the NBA, especially with the players, they are so visible now when it comes to, social issues and all this stuff off the court. So they don't want the outside world looking like them like they're thugs or whatnot. They want them, their players and their voices to be taken seriously. But you want to portray this little thug, and you don't even come from that background. So he keeps having these meetings with the commissioner, and this time they try to ignore it, and then you want to immediately do it again. You testing them. It's okay. I mean, I think with Silver, everybody, especially if you remember the NBA during the David Stern days, you always hear about the comparison between the two commissioners. This right here with David Stern, oh hell no. David Stern would have suspended him for a year, especially after all the warnings he didn't given you.
Yeah, Stern didn't play.
Oh no, he would have. No, and then you really would hear people complaining. Silver is more of a player's commissioner, but some players you see they take advantage of it. I was listening to First Take one now. They were saying like Silver, he's recognizing it. He's trying to be lenient with him, but he's like, okay, it's gonna be a moment where he's just gonna like, okay, enough is enough. But right now with Morant, you literally seeing a player doing this. The other player may be, what's his name, Draymond, but Draymond don't do anything like this. Draymond just keep getting technicals on the court. A lot of time with Draymond is basketball related on the court. Morant is the one who's doing this image stuff off the court. So the reason he gets suspended now because basically, man, they tried to ignore it when the first time you did it, and then you're going to immediately do it again. That's exactly what happened the first time. You got in trouble, then you immediately do it again after you heard from the commissioner. So all this talk, when people are talking about other players doing it, they do not have, and I'm not saying he's a felon, but I'm just using this as a representation. It's like a felon who gets caught with a gun. You're a felon. You can't have that. You lost that privilege. These other people, they can hold a gun, so you can't get mad at them, and then all of a sudden you get in trouble for having a firearm. You a felon. You lost that privilege. That's what you did that to yourself. The same thing with Ja. So, now he got a new celebration with the bomb, the grenade throwing. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Silver gonna say about that. It's like, dude, just play basketball. You created this image that the commissioner does not agree with. He spoke to you about it multiple times. It's just like you just doing something. It's like he's trying to portray something. Like, dude, you gonna mess around and find yourself constantly get kicked out the league because you being hard headed. If you don't want to abide by this, go. The NBA will move on without you.
Absolutely. Just want to acknowledge, again, CJ dropped us another super chat and from the prior discussion. Dallas Star season ticket holder, shout out to him for that. And then another super chat on CJ. So Negro's got a quick quorum of adjusters. Ja has zero conviction. So what we're talking about, in the words of Charles Barkley, I'm not a role model. Well, yeah, different perspective.
Yeah,
but
that. Boys may be saying, like CJ, I see what you're saying, man. He's like, you forget Ja works for the NBA. He worked for a private company. It's like people want to apply the same rules on the streets as it is in the NBA. They are a private company. If you don't like it, you can leave. That's what I'm saying. It's not the same. You can't look at and do the same thing that boys do on the streets and think that's going to fly in a private company like the NBA, especially who have such a visual, a presence to them. I don't understand why people be like, But that's just,
go ahead, Hank. What's your thoughts on the matter? Overblown or appropriate?
Yeah, it's really disappointed. They're disappointed how he's really handling this, man. And then he's he's young minded, man, and he's moving and operating like that. And unfortunately, his father is not helping the situation because he's not no that he needs to be
Right.
for his son.
Hey,
And
Hank,
handle
your mic,
situations.
you're breaking up a bit, Hank.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. Can
Right.
you might want to try to go out and come back in. Your mic's breaking up real bad. So,
Hmm.
yeah, just come on back. I'll go to coach right now. Just come on back in. All right.
It looked like he's on below
Okay.
ground or something.
Okay. All right.
He
All right.
was
Go ahead, coach.
I mean, it's unfortunate that, after all this happened over the last year and a half with him, that he's still sort of hanging on to that type of behavior. I mean, you can do all kinds of things when you make a shot. You know, I just, at some point, it could definitely get him out the league at some point. The NBA is bigger than one player. So, again, man, it's just unfortunate, man. There's all kinds of ways that you can do to, after you make a three, you can do whatever, this old gun emulation that players do now. It just, to me, it's stupid. I don't like it because we understand it, but everybody else doesn't have to understand it. And that's just the thing. If we was on the playground, yeah.
Mhm.
But hey, I don't
But
know,
coach, I
man.
mean, you've seen a lot. For again, back in the day, it was the choke sign. Then it was the throat slash, and just all
Yep.
these different things that come in through sports, and whatnot. So, I mean, again, is any of it appropriate? I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Oh, I'm sure you've coached kids and whatnot against that, and what. So, I mean, how's that even get into the game at these young ages? These guys been coached since little league or whatever, and yet and still they find themselves doing these things that are just
But see, this is at you. This is at you. This is, I'm just doing a gesture. You know what I'm saying? But, Carmelo Anthony used to do his head, point to his head.
Mm.
So, again, man, it's a sensitive time, and he's been put on the, I hate to say it, they could make an example of him. It's just unfortunate, but again, somebody in this corner should be telling him, man, you don't need to do all that. Let your game speak, because you've seen how his game has dropped off, because he ain't still got that same bravado he's had. But
Yeah,
just
I think it's
just
recent
play.
injuries.
Yeah, no, but it ain't the injury. It's just, it's just like when you lose that bravado that you had when you was doing whatever.
He reminds me so much of Russell Westbrook the way he plays. Cause they
Nah,
both,
similar,
well,
similar,
they
but he,
all
No
in the
problem.
paint.
Yeah,
They're
probably
not
even more
perimeter
they
athletic than
players.
he
jump.
is. Yeah,
Yeah, but he ain't passing the ball like Russell. But I
Oh
don't
no.
know, man. It's just unfortunate, man. Somebody need to talk to him, man. Tell him just grow up, man. Cut his hair off. Stop putting pink in his hair and shit, and just man up
Well,
at
that's
this.
just a young. That's some
Hey,
creativity,
man, I
man.
understand, man.
It's his only
But
thing is, man,
I
is just
understand, man.
he created this image, man, because of the gunplay. I remember when you talk about the throw slash, Mr. Bennett, that was like an NBA mandate. They got tired of the players doing that, so that rule, hey, y'all all stop doing that.
hmm
Players wasn't shooting a gun, and even if they were in a celebration, it was always kind of ignored per se until Ja got caught brandishing the guns on social media. That's where all Ja's issues come from, right there. If he never did that, they probably wouldn't make a big deal out of his gun celebration. But because he did that, that's why he has a spotlight on him when it comes to these gun celebrations.
hmm
But everybody want to bring up everybody else. I'm like, this dude created his own thing. Well, who am I? I'm just a dude on the outside.
And just to the chat, I know there's a lot of stuff going on. So again, at least, and again, I haven't talked to the gentleman about it, but we typically don't talk about personal stuff in the NBA. So whether it be Zion and his dating choices or Ant with his
Yeah.
situations outside, we don't typically deal with that stuff here. We try to keep it kind of on the court, so to speak. This was obviously an on the court matter. And so we deal with it. Zion not playing because, again, his weight and whatnot. I mean, I think those are certainly fair game, but we tend to stay away from the gossip stuff with that, even though it could wind up affecting these guys in their bag for sure. but we try to stay above that. But Hank, thanks for coming back. Your thoughts again on the issue with Ja and just with all these gestures. You have a son who plays college basketball and whatnot, so I'm sure you've seen some of this as well. So what's your thoughts on the matter?
Can you hear? Is it better? Does it sound better?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah, I just it's disappointing. Like I was saying earlier, it really is because he's young-minded, man, and unfortunately his father is not doing him a service because he's not being much of a role model himself. How he's moving and acting and carrying on. So. I hate this for him, but I can see. I think what Shawty was saying was, I can see them making a rule out of this. So I'm probably gonna call it the John Morant rule. Saying no gunplay or any volatile gestures at all. So I can see that coming. I really do. He's one of those guys, man. He's gonna feel like he's gonna dig his heels even more. You tell him not to do something, you know how some kids are. They're gonna figure a way how to do it anyway. And so that's what I say. I think he's acting young-minded and moving young-minded, and he's digging his heels in. He's going to do it. I'm not going to do the gunplay, but I got the grenade going on there. So I mean, what is going to be next? Is going to have a rocket launcher act going on there? Tell me what's going to be his next weapon of choice? I don't know, but hopefully, man, he starts to grow up as he gets a little bit more age up under his belt, and he matures in his game. And somebody really, have a heart-to-heart. One of them older guys, man, you would hope to have a conversation. Unfortunately, his coach was fired, and so normally it's your coach who would kind of try to talk some sense into you and say, hey, man, you shouldn't be moving like this. But, they see how much respect they have for the coach. They cut his ass. So with that being said, I'm gonna leave it there. But fellas, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get on another time.
Yep. Appreciate you coming on.
So y'all keep rocking out, bro.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and then make sure you guys go over to Sterling Hank in the basement and certainly follow his content. I know with the draft coming up, I know he's gonna have a lot of coverage coming up. He's following his Chicago Bears. I'm sorry, but but we'll see you next time, brother. And again, we appreciate you coming on with us tonight. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Y'all be easy. Take care now.
All right. So here we come into the last topic, the last topic of the night, and this kind of bore out of our own private chat here. So got some news about new inductees to the Hall of Fame. So we have certainly Carmelo Anthony and Dwight Howard being elected to the Hall of Fame on first ballot. And I had issue with that. So Coach, Shawnee and Dante, they brought this up and again, Dante's not with us tonight, unfortunately, but they were certainly leading the charge with this as far as them being, look, I think they're Hall of Famers. I don't think they're first ballot Hall of Famers. But then we just had the conversation last week about Deion Sanders and the brother who played for the Patriots, and we didn't want to bring up stats then, even though it was we said that stats really in that case, even though they're similar, shouldn't really matter. And the first thing Shawnee and Dante wanted to do was bring up some stats on these two players. So I wanted to entertain tonight just to go through some stats. All right. Again, congratulations to these players for getting in. I'm not hating on them getting in. Get in where you fit in, so to speak. But I was a little disappointed in Shawnee and Dante's take on this a little bit. So I figured let's go through this, and you guys are certainly free to respond and make your case. But let me just make mine first, and we can come back. We'll start with Dwight. So the first question I asked, as far as big men and Coach, and some of these guys we've seen, but is he with any of these guys? I even put now Bill Walton at least Bill Walton led a team to a championship. Yes, he was brittle feet and all that kind of stuff. He was obviously a great college player with UCLA, but I don't put Howard in with any of these guys. And for me, I'm still a little bit old school when it comes to rating. If you're going to talk about first ballot, I should be able to, without hesitation, say, yeah, that dude. And I can't put him in with any of these guys. I mean, no, yes, he's got a championship, the one he won with the Lakers. But from what I understand, he was so bad with the Lakers. That's why I wanted Dante here, since he's the Laker fan. It was so bad that Kobe and Shaq made up as a result of it, because Dwight was on the team. So I don't think he is in the same category as any of these guys, despite his all-star appearances or anything else. So again, the guys in the back, they share with me the stats. So again, compared him to Dikembe Mutombo, Patrick Ewing, Robert Parrish, who's got 3 with the Celtics. But again, as a contributor, even when Howard was with the Lakers, he wasn't a major factor in them getting that championship. So I can't give it to him. Yes, I know he led Orlando to the finals and lost against the Lakers. But, if you want to compare stats or whatnot, but again, I thought we weren't all about stats here. But you guys want to bring some of these stats up. Patrick Ewing, I'm not sure if I would necessarily count him as a first ballot Hall of Famer, but nevertheless, I would still pick him over Dwight. I think his offensive game was much better than Dwight's. And I thought certainly Dikembe Mutombo's defensive game was on par with Dwight's as well. So I'm making the case here that again, Hall of Famer, I'll give him that. Maybe second, third, fourth ballot, he could get in, but I just don't buy the first ballot argument. So we can pause here, and we can talk about Mr. Howard, or since Shawnee, and again, unfortunately Dante's not here tonight, but Shawnee, if you want to make your case for Mr. Howard, and why do you think he is a first ballot Hall of Famer? The floor is yours, sir, if you want to take that on.
Yeah, my whole thing with Howard, for the most part with Howard, you are majority of his Hall of Fame credentials was during his Orlando days. Then when he came with the Lakers, him and Kobe didn't get along. I don't think he was a proper fit with them, because it was kind of weird, because Kobe usually played very well with a capable big man. Then same thing with the Rockets. They just, Harden pretty much dictated all that. So I don't think he really got a fair shot with the Rockets. But a lot of his stuff that we look at now is from his Orlando days. During his Orlando days, he wasn't Shaq dominant, but he was dominant. Majority of his dominance was on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, he was putting some numbers up offensively, but he wasn't Shaq. Shaq was just pure dominant. I mean, we still haven't seen a player like Shaq if you watch Shaq during his prime. Howard looked like him sometimes. He had those little sprinkles at times, especially during his prime years with Orlando. But the thing about basketball, you just got to remember, especially true with Carmelo's case. They look at your whole entire basketball library. So it's like, NFL, Major League is basically what you did exactly on the MLB or NFL field of play. NBA, they look at what you did on the NBA court, what you did on the Olympic. I think KD may have passed him, but I think before KD, Carmelo was, he had the most wins in Olympic basketball history. And so they look at a lot of, because it's the pro basketball Hall of Fame. It's not the NBA Hall of Fame. So they got a little bit more, of a room to get in than what you see on the other major, U.S. major sports. But with Dwight, if he didn't get first ballot, second ballot, I would have been fine with that. My whole thing was Dwight. I thought he should have got on that top 25 list. But if you look at him, he's like, you look at the list, you like, damn, who he gonna take off? But I think it was like many people are probably looking at Anthony Davis or Damian Lillard. I think I think Dwight Howard could have got in on that top 25 before, either one of them two. But
What?
yeah,
He was a role player. He wasn't. Now, again, CJ said, he had a broken back and all that. Granted, but again, Kobe said all that stuff. I didn't say it about Dwight. I like Dwight.
Yeah,
Kobe was like,
Dwight, I'm assuming I think that's Dante right there.
yeah, that's it. Shout out to Dante for being in. Yeah, I got him. But look, Kobe was saying this stuff about Dwight when he was with the Lakers. In fact, like I said, he apologized to Shaq after seeing Dwight. It's like I had no idea what work was like until I had to work with this guy. So he made up with him because of it. So like I said, I got no smoke against Dwight. I'm just saying he's not a first ballot because again, a first ballot, again, you got to look at these names as I said before. And I don't put him up there with any. I take all these guys certainly above. And I know Bill Russell, and Wilt played in another era. I get that. But again, 11 rings with Bill Russell and on consistently beat Kareem's teams. Wilt's teams. So, so I'm not, like I said, I don't have anything against him. I just don't think he's a first ballot guy. That's my main argument is that. But Coach, why don't you take this on? You've seen some of these guys from the past. I think recency bias was mentioned earlier, and I'm thinking maybe there might be some recency bias here. I don't know, but what say you, sir? Since we've seen a number of these players over the decades. So what's your view on Dwight Howard as a first ballot Hall of Famer?
I mean, as a center in that list, I would put him over both Bill Walton and Parrish, just based off his numbers early in his career. Mm-hmm. Bill Walton had success early, but he was pretty much done after like 4 years.
He had some big injuries, didn't he?
Yes, foot injuries. Yes, foot.
Robert Parrish, he was on the great Celtics teams, man. Who, if Dwight Howard was on those Celtics teams, man, they probably would have won 5 or 6 because he was a dominant.
All he could do was dunk. Parrish had the hang on, Coach. Robert Parrish had the second most unblockable shot in the NBA. We all know about Kareem's skyhook, but Robert Parrish's rainbow jumper. Come on, man.
I understand. Listen, I wasn't necessarily a Celtics fan, but I can tell you about a play, any player could have filled in as a center. It could have been Bill Cartwright for the Bulls would have been over at Boston and they would have won. But I think he earned it. I think he earned it. He was dominant. You saw his numbers compared to those other 3 guys, and pretty much, they were better. So, at the end, yeah, like most tall guys, they sort of fade away. The age of the big man, he was outside of Joker. That's pretty much it. Anthony Davis, it's a different time. I'm glad he got in, man.
Oh yeah, like I said, I want him. What's that?
Mm-hmm.
Was the Kimbe first ballot?
Yep. He got in.
But I don't agree with that either. I think
because the Kimbe was in there purely on defense. And
right.
If Howard is first ballot, he matches. You saw his numbers. Offensively, he don't compare to the other dudes you have on your list. Defensively, he compares to the Kimbe. And if the Kimbe was first ballot, that is why Howard is first ballot, because they were both dominating on defense. So they just basically I think Dennis Rodman, he was dominant on defense. So he was first ballot. Of course, he had the championship with the Bulls, but with them 3 players, it just shows you, it don't always, even though Howard, he just didn't have the offensive move set like some of them other legendary, he definitely was not Hakeem Olajuwon, no Patrick Robinson, and not Patrick Robinson. I'm putting the 2 Patrick Ewing and
David Robinson.
They created a monster, but Howard he didn't have that offensive game like them, but defensively, Oh, he can hold against with anybody.
Yeah, but I wouldn't put a guy who was solely, like I said, a Dikembe. I don't think he's first ballot either. I think first ballot, you got to, again, impact the game in a way that hasn't been seen before. You got to have some MVPs. You got to have some championships. You got to have something in your resume besides just being a very good player or certainly having a particular skill set over that course of time. Want to acknowledge, certainly, Brother Anton, thank you for the $10 super chat. One of the things that give Patrick Ewing a first ballot Hall of Fame status, he's one of 3 players to win Olympic gold medals as both a player, amateur, both an amateur and a professional. So yeah, I mean, I would certainly do that. But again, a lot of guys won. I mean, in fact, the next guy we're going to talk about, Carmelo. Well, Carmelo won. Well, I don't know if you want to. We count the Dream Team in that because, or because Magic obviously won both Olympic gold medal. He won the national championship, and he also won in the finals. I got to think about the other. I got to think about the other two, but certainly I would put Magic up there as certainly one of those guys who did. And obviously Jordan did that. Jordan did that. Obviously, yeah. The shot at the shot at the end of the game over Georgetown. But yeah, I like I said, it's not a question for me. Is he a Hall of Famer or not? That's not the question. First ballot, and again, and this is oftentimes what this is sometimes what happens. Again, when you start making everything you start comparing to guys who were there, and now it's like, well, we put him in, now we got to put that guy in. But again, do you then say that that he deserves because someone got in there who was less deserving than somebody else? Top 75, if you want to put him in that list, like I said, you could certainly do that. Now he's saying he's a soft first ballot.
Well, Mr. Bennett, Dante brought it up in the chat. A point. It sounds like you look at it like with the hard nose, like the MLB and NFL Hall of Fame, as far as, okay, remember the basketball. I've heard pretty much out the 4 major U.S. sports, basketball Hall of Fame is probably the easiest one to get in because it's a wider scope. It's just a wider scope. So it's just, if you look at it, like you were saying, Mr. Bennett, as far as basically strictly, we all know how MLB Hall of Fame is. We know, I think I spoke about it, how the voters over there literally feel like they some type of super gatekeeper. And they were just, like we saw, what's his name? Ichiro, who should have had a unanimous vote, but they get that one vote.
Again, hang on, before you go on. Again, I never said, I'll reiterate for like the 5th time. I'm not saying he's not a Hall of Famer. I'm saying he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. And how long did it take Mo Cheeks to get into the Hall of Fame? What, 10, 15 years before he got into the Hall of Fame? So again, I'm not hating on Dwight Howard. I just don't think he's a first ballot guy. That's my only he's not. I agree. I agree with all of that.
This is a weak class this year. To me, it's one of the weakest classes in years.
I got to see the class.
They got Billy Donovan and going, how's he going to the NBA Hall of Fame?
And that because of his
Billy Donovan
to college basketball and stuff. That's the
thing.
thing.
He's going to the college Hall of Fame, not the NBA.
The Pro Basketball Hall of Fame is, the scope is so wide. It's just, you be looking at him like, how did this person get in there?
Oh, hang on. Anton saying who's the third? Obviously, Bill Russell. Won 2 national championships in San Francisco, won a 1956 Olympic gold medal in Melbourne, and obviously won 11 championships with the with the Celtics. So obviously, again, highly decorated, won on every level possible multiple times. So again, shout out to.
So really quick before we move on, can I ask y'all a question regarding Bill Russell?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Would y'all put him as one of the greatest coaches of all time? The fact that he was the head coach and played on the team,
player coach for two years. In that time, no, I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd put him as the greatest. I mean, certainly I wouldn't even put him over Auerbach, who coached prior to him being there. But as far as the play, is he the best player coach of all time? You win consecutive championships in '68 and '69. So yeah, I'll give him that. But I wouldn't put him over Auerbach or not even Phil Jackson or any of those guys who won multiple titles. No, but certainly as a man and and if any of you guys were interested, I know you guys aren't necessarily Celtic fans, but Celtic City on HBO is a current series that's on right now. It's excellent, and certainly you just have more respect for Bill Russell on seeing what he had to do, what he had to go through. Certainly in that time. Yeah.
When people just bring up players from that time, man, today's time, they just basically have to focus about their respective sports. But whenever you're talking about players during that time, man, I don't know how they dealt with it. But yeah, they had a whole lot of bigger stuff other than basketball going on during their time.
But he was balling though. He
was. That's why I give much credit to him.
You'll never see that again in our lifetime.
I'm wrong about something here. So if I get a chance, I'll try to bring you up in a minute, Anton. We have time. We got certainly get to this last block here. So I want to go look at our next guy. So again, Carmelo Anthony. So this is, again, a listing of the greatest, and this is coming from Hoops Hype, and I didn't even go through the whole list or to even find where Melo was. Melo was kind of middle of the pack, but this is listing greatest small forwards of all time, and this is in ranked order, all right? So, again, Carmelo not cracking the top 10. Now, again, some people may say Rick Barry, who's Rick Barry, John Havlicek from back in the day. But, again, here's another guy who's been in the league for 18 years, no rings, didn't even get to a finals, really. And but again, had a good career. Obviously, I think he has the most points. I think in Olympics, basketball history, USA men's basketball history, the most points there, multi-time gold medalist. But again, am I going to put him in with these guys, Dr. J, and those guys who, like I said, just paved the way in the league? I don't think so. And again, so what I also did was, I did a comparison between him, and since Dominique was 10th on this list, I compared his career to Dominique. So he played 4 more seasons than Dominique, because Dominique had an injury. I think it might have been like an early Achilles injury or something. So he was out for a while, came back. 19 seasons for Anthony versus 15. Playoffs played 13 versus 10. All-Star games 10 versus 9. So, again, very comparable numbers. All-Star teams, Dominique went to 7, whereas Carmelo went to 6. Scoring leaders, again, they each have 1 apiece. And then, again, in terms of points per game, Dominique was the higher points per game scorer. Again, very similar, but very comparable numbers across the board. And the main point that I want to make here, even with free throw percentages, everything that's there, Dominique Wilkins, who, by the way, I will take this to my grave. Dominique Wilkins beat Michael Jordan in that 1988 slam dunk contest. That was some home cooking by Chicago. He won that. They stole it from him at the end. I'll take that to my grave with that. But Dominique Wilkins was not our first ballot Hall of Famer. He got in on the second ballot. So, again, just look at the comparable numbers. And my thing is, if he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, then I don't think Carmelo Anthony should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So I will, pause there. And again, Coach, wait for Shawnee to come back. But you want to comment on Carmelo being a first ballot Hall of Famer? And I would.
Listen, just based off who's eligible this year, he's first ballot. This is not a strong class. Unfortunately, it's not a strong class. So he fits the criteria to be first ballot for this year. Now, I don't know what it's going to look like next year or whatever, but yeah, he at one point he was considered the greatest shooter in NBA until Steph just broke out. And it's
John Havlicek hang on in the 70s. Well, actually, he won multiple championships with the Celtics in the 60s, and he won 2 as the captain of the team in 74 and in 76. 2 championships, John Havlicek. So go ahead, Coach.
No, I'm just saying, this class wasn't as strong. When I saw the list, I'm like, come on, man. Billy Donovan, he ain't did nothing. he can't even have a winning season since he's been in coaching in the league. But if they're basing it off college, and it still doesn't qualify. Just a weak class, man. So, yeah, salute to him. Yeah.
Look, helping your team win. I mean, again, shout out to the Patrick Ewings, the Charles Barkleys. There's been a lot of the Karl Malone, even Karl Malone. I mean, when he left the game, was he like the all-time scoring leader or in the top 3 all-time? Number 2 all-time, and then you had John Stockton was the all-time point, assist leader. I wouldn't take him. But at least, like I said, even though they didn't win championships, they left either they broke records or had some sort of standard at the game when they were near the top. So I'm not even saying that winning a championship is everything, or being the all-time scoring leader is everything. But I'm saying these guys, I would say they're in the Hall of the Very Good. I wouldn't necessarily call them in the Hall of the Great. But go ahead, Shawnee. What's your thoughts on Carmelo on his first ballot? Not that he's not a Hall of Famer. First ballot. I feel I'm getting beat up by the chat here, but I'm not taking away these guys' interest into the Hall. I'm just saying I wouldn't put him number 1. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, Carmelo probably even more than Dwight. They, like I mentioned earlier, they really looking at the totality of his basketball career to make him a first ballot. And all you can really do is just look at his numbers. I mean, that's really all when it comes to him and his accomplishments. I compare him to the other the 2 of the WNBA players that was on Sue Bird and Maya Moore. You look at their stats and what they accomplished. They had multiple rings, and they performed at the top of multiple categories. Carmelo, he was his biggest thing, because NBA All-Star, to me, that's so people driven. Because I've seen them, they voted somebody a starter. I think it was Carmelo or something. They'll vote a player a starter, and he's been injured majority of the year. So I don't really just take that one just too seriously, because sometimes the fans, I don't know what they're doing. But with Carmelo, 13-time All-Star. No, I'm sorry, 10-time All-Star, 2-time second team, and he didn't even make a first team, 4-time third team, and he has 1 scoring champion. And biggest thing, he has 3 gold medals. He brought up before I think Kevin Durant broke it. He he scored the most points in USA Olympics basketball history. So with Carmelo, like I say, the point I was making about Dwight, the reason he was looked at as the first ballot because of his defensive numbers. Carmelo, he obviously was a better offensive player, but you looking at, if you watch Carmelo, Carmelo had the talent to definitely win a title. It just did not happen. But you're looking at the main thing, I guess, that stands out with Carmelo as far as making this basketball Hall of Fame is his 3 gold medals. So I think he is a bigger. I knew Carmelo was going to be, and I had a feeling Dwight was going to be first ballot. But I knew Carmelo was going to be a Hall of Famer. But his first ballot, I think Mr. Bennett, I think you will have more of a case about Carmelo being he should be a first ballot than Dwight. Because Carmelo, I'm looking at it, I'm still just, you scratch your head because you don't want to demean his numbers because he had a hell of a career. But that first ballot, and I guess that's why it's NBA, you can't look at it because the NFL, you already know if you first ballot, that means you up on the top floor of the building. You not even, it's an upper echelon, you're not even with the other Hall of Famers. You cream of the crop. Right now, you basically saying Carmelo Anthony is on the top floor of the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame with the cream of crop with the legends of like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. The dude never made first team. And the people don't vote that. That's, media and all that vote that. But, hey, that's why you can't, it's hard to look at the Basketball Hall of Fame, man, because They scope is just so much bigger. They looking at pretty much everything you accomplished. Damn near pretty much your whole basketball career. They probably looking at something you did back
Hang on 1 second. Hang on 1 second. So listen, we got about 5 minutes left in the show. Right? We want to end. We went last couple shows. We running over. We want to keep it kind of tight tonight. 5 minutes to make your case. I know Anton had a trivia question that he said I did not answer. So again, he's more than welcome to come up and correct the record. I mentioned Bill Russell, but again, if that's incorrect, you're more free. So anybody wants to come up in the last 5 minutes, drop your comment real quick, and then jump off because we're about to jump off the show. But certainly, again, you guys have been terrific tonight with the chat. Shout out! I love the energy of it. You guys are really bringing it. Yes, I brought a little more smoke tonight. I know I irritated some people tonight with this, but I've shown you, yes, I'm old. I'm shout out to the Gen Xers, me and Coach being Gen Xers. And so again, some of the stuff is generational. We understand that, but certainly if anybody wants to come on in the next few minutes before we end the show and make a quick comment or whatever. But again, we really appreciate you guys for being with us tonight. And we want to make this, make this more exciting as we go on, have more debates and things that we do here. But again, we really appreciate you guys going on. All right, go ahead, finish up, Shawnee, what you were saying.
No, I was just basically making the point that you know how you felt about Dwight. I think Carmelo, I think you can make a better case for him just because it just goes to show you just how big the scope is with pro basketball. You know what I mean? So with pro basketball, other than MLB, I definitely want to hear the voters and the reason why they do what they do. With pro basketball, I wish I could hear the voters on what all do they consider when they be voting these players. Because I know y'all have a wider net. Y'all cast a wider net for these who going to get into the Hall of Fame. But
Right. Now, I know sometimes, and I know the NFL, what they did this year, they weren't, because usually you put 6 in for the NFL every. I think this past year they're not. So I think there might be a lot of these are going away. If you only got one Hall of Famer that year, and that's all you got. You don't have to have like a certain number.
But
I know
the
it makes
NFL have like a Legends type, like a
but I think this year they were like one of the smallest classes in a long time. So certainly they're going away with that. Oh well, we got to put 6 in a year. I think they're starting to step away from that a little bit. But welcome Anton as always to the show. Thank you for joining us tonight. So again, where did I go wrong? So I mentioned I thought I got all 3. Bill Russell, like I said, I know he won college. 2 championships with University of San Francisco, 1 Olympic title in Melbourne '56, and he won certainly on the pro level. Michael Jordan won a national championship with North Carolina, 84 Olympics, and obviously the NBA championships. You could throw Magic in if you want to include the Dream Team. But again, if you want to say he didn't win an Olympic gold medal as an amateur, that's 3 right there. So who am I missing if you're saying there's only 3 of them? If it's because I think there might be more, especially if you put Dream Team in.
Yeah, you're going to be shocked, Mr. Ben, when I tell you this. I said in the history of USA basketball, there's only 3 players that have won gold medals as both amateurs and as professionals.
Oh, gold medals as amateurs and professionals. Okay. I thought you meant amateur, Olympics, and professional. Okay, then I misread the question then. Okay.
There are 3 players in the history of USA basketball. Patrick Ewing is 1. Michael Jordan is 2. Chris Mullin is number 3.
Yeah, because he was
all 3 of those guys.
He was on the '84 team. Yeah.
All 3 of those guys were on the '84 team in LA, coached by the late
Bobby Knight, yes.
And all 3 were on the Dream Team. There's only one Dream Team, and that's that team in '92.
Right.
Coached by the great Chuck Daly. Those 3 guys. The only other player on that list that also kind of fits that criteria but never won gold, who do you think is number 4?
Oh, jeez. And it's an amateur.
Oh, I got to be sure. Come on now.
So wait a minute. So he either won on like the pro as a professional, he won a gold medal, but he didn't win one as a
amateur.
Well, there's a lot of them, right? I mean, Vince Carter.
Nope.
Yeah, Vince. Well, he won. He won on that 2000 Dream Team. He won an Olympic gold medal.
No. I'm talking about didn't win a gold medal, but also played in the Olympics as an amateur, but did play as a professional and won gold. There's one player. And I'll give you a hint, he is on the dream team.
All right, repeat the question one more time.
All right. You already know about the 3 players that won gold as both amateurs
Right,
and professionals.
gotcha. Yep.
Player that did not win gold. He did play in the Olympics as an amateur, didn't win gold, but did play in the Olympics as a professional and did win gold. Who's that player? And I said, I gave you a hint. He is on the dream team.
I don't even know which ones played as amateurs. I just
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. 90, so 88. Who's on that 88 team? Danny Manning was on that team.
Nope, not Danny Manning.
Man, I'm stumped, man. I'm
David
stumped.
Robinson. He was on the 88 team for the U.S. Naval Academy. And he was on the dream team in 92.
Yep, they lost it. Yeah, they lost in 88, and that's what precipitated.
And that was the last amateur team,
in
right?
92. That was the last time we got a good one. Great one.
A lot of people did not get that, so don't feel bad. I said that to a lot of people, and a lot of them couldn't get them. They always get Jordan, they always get Ewing, but they forget about Chris Mullen. Always. Yeah. That is true, JT. That is true. That was the
we
rumor
all know
going
about.
around.
Yeah, if you saw the Jordan documentary, which is an outrage because I would take Isaiah Thomas over John Stockton 10 times out of 10 and twice on Sunday. I'm sorry. Yes, I know he was the all-time assist leader and all that stuff. Isaiah Thomas in the 80s was a bad boy.
Yes,
so
I
would without question, I would take. Yeah.
Yes, he was. Oh,
was definitely.
That's when you really saw like politics amongst the players, like not like American politics, but how players, whether they like you or not, they influence. That's when you really saw it when it came to NBA. Because as you mentioned, Isaiah definitely he should have been that team, but because they didn't like.
I don't know if I would call John Stockton. Look, they had that pick and roll. They basically owned the stock on that pick and roll. Him and Malone, they ran that for years. Half of his assists came from there. Isaiah did everything. Won at every level. Won in 76. Won 2 championships with the Pistons and whatnot. So again,
definitely at that time when that team was created, Stockton was not on Isaiah's level. When that team was created, Stockton was there, but Isaiah already won two titles, and he's not even going down his list of accomplishments what he had when that dream team was assembled.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that. I mean, Isaiah, he had Adrian Dantley for a stretch. He had Joe Dumars. I mean, he has some ballers. I mean, them bad boys. They were a talented team.
Vinny Johnson, Dennis Rodman, John Sally, Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, Mark Aguirre. They had some good teams back in that time. The Pistons had some really good teams at that time.
For sure. And they were balanced. So like the Celtics were the old guard, so they had to beat the Celtics. And then Jordan came up. They had a window there, and then Jordan came after that, and they couldn't beat him anymore. So exactly. I would but they had Mark Aguirre. Didn't Aguirre, I think, play for them for a stretch after he left Dallas?
So.
They had some talent, bro. Now Detroit had some talent, but Isaiah, Isaiah was special. special.
Hey, Shawnee, I heard your point when you were talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame and what's up with them. I remember some time back, Baseball Tonight, Barry Larkin was on the segment. I think he was still doing the studio. He was studio analyst at the time. He was already in the Hall of Fame. And he talked about how the baseball writers, they have this, how can I describe it? They kind of have this unwritten rule on who to follow. Do you still have a good number of old school baseball writers who are still voting? Yeah. And what it is, he didn't say the names. He never mentioned the names of who they were, probably because he didn't want to say the wrong individuals who weren't doing it. But there's these old head baseball writers, and it's like, I think 2 or 3. And those guys basically dictate to the other older writers who should get in and who should not get in. And that's been something that's been going on for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard for a good number of players to get into Cooperstown for that reason. One of the reasons why, and it's not even about Barry Bonds. A lot of people forget Barry Bonds doesn't like the press, and it's not because of his attitude or anything else. People forget Barry Bonds grew up around the game of baseball. His father was a player.
Yep.
His brother was also a player. His godfather was one of the greatest to ever play.
Yeah, well,
and he took it very personal when Willie Mays left the Giants to come back to New York to play for the Mets, especially in the tail end of his career, and his skills were starting to dwindle. He didn't like what the press had to say about him, and he took it very personal. He took it personal when he played Little League. He took it personal when he played in the College World Series at Arizona State. And he still, to this day, he still doesn't trust the press because of what they said about his godfather. And he loved his godfather. And for anyone that knows, he loved his godfather just as much as he loved his dad. That's how close Barry Bonds was to Willie Mays. And still to this day, he does not like the press for that reason. And people forget that. And because of that, that's why the baseball writers won't put him in Cooperstown.
Yeah,
not about the Falco situation.
Yeah.
Not about Falco, not about the PEDs, and that's a totally different argument.
Yeah, but none of those guys.
That's the main reason.
Yeah, but none of those guys are getting in though. I don't think none of them. The guys who've been outed. Now you got guys who've been speculated and whatnot, but none of the day one of those guys who was actually outed gets in, that may change the conversation. But I don't think any of those. So I don't think it's just his personality. I just think that was just in their view, such a black eye on the sport, despite the fact that that era came out after the strike of '94. That home run baby basically restored baseball. But I'll leave that alone. But listen, we can chop that another time. We didn't even get into the NBA firings is my closing comment. Obviously with Memphis and firing their coach Denver. It just goes to show that
wait. Memphis fired their coach?
Memphis fired their coach.
Last week,
and then obviously the Denver coach just got fired a couple days ago.
I heard about that one.
So again, it just goes to show it's not for long. If anybody knows about that, Shawnee obviously knows. If Jerry and Jimmy, after winning back-to-back championships, couldn't stay together. So again, just because you win doesn't mean that they're gonna that it's a permanent job or that you have job security. But certainly it was looked at that Denver wasn't peaking at the right time or what have you, and there was a lot of dissension with the team, and quite frankly they didn't the players didn't care when he got fired. So obviously there was something where it just gets to a point where they just don't listen to you anymore. That championship might have just bought him a couple more years. He was with the team for 10 years. And so he was certainly slated to go. But as far as the issue with Memphis, again, why would you do that? You're basically hanging on. You're on the border of being a play-in team versus the 6th seed going in. Why would you want to make a change at that time? I have no idea. But again, we can possibly chop that up on another show. Just want to get everyone's closing comments before we end the show tonight. And so I'll start with Shawnee. We're just going to go to Anton. If you got some, always dropping a quick nugget before we leave. And then obviously I'd like to defer to the coach to close us out on the right foot. So go ahead, Shawnee.
Yeah, my final thoughts, I'll just go back to the whole Ja thing, man. Ja, and I don't think Ja had any role in Taylor Jenkins, his head coaching firing, which was weird because both of those firings, those teams at the time had secure playoff spots. So why did they fire them at the end of the season? I do not know, but that's another thing. Probably get to that next week. But as far as Ja and this whole image thing we talked about earlier, the dude, it's just him and his portrayal of the gun, and that's how all of this happened. All of this, everything that folks talk about with Ja, and whether they agree or not, when he got suspended, when he get fined compared to other players, it's all because of what he created when he was brandishing the guns. When I think I forgot the whole story when he got into it with some younger dude and he had the gun. And then about the Instagram video or whatnot where he had the gun and the dude tried to hurry turn the camera on him. So that got him in trouble. That got him the bigger suspension. Because that came right off when you talked to the commissioner. He went through a whole program and everything. Came back and did the same thing again. But, with Ja, But with Ja, it's his whole image today is just basically what he created. So I know a lot of people talk about this player did that, this player did that. They didn't do the first thing that Ja did, so they on a more cleaner slate. So
There you go. All right, Anton.
Yeah, sorry about that. That was my son coming by.
You good?
My final thoughts about John Morant. Like I said in the chat, if he never had those issues, this would be a non-issue. And unfortunately, now we live in the time of social media. Anything you do off the court, it's going to be exemplified times 1,000. It's going to carry with you for a very long time. But it's very hard to shake that. So I think he has to start realizing now that he has to start making some serious changes to not only who he associates with off the court, but some of the things he does on the court. I don't like the fact that he has to do that, but he has to do that. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's fair, but that's the situation he's in, and he has to make that change. I mean, no one's saying he can't celebrate. No one's saying he can't have fun. No one's saying he can't, high five his teammates, do the giddy and all that stuff. But the fact that he put himself in a situation where off the court, he was brandishing firearms. It got on social media. It's going to get blown up, so on and so forth. You had a meeting with Adam Silver. You said that, okay, it's not going to be an issue anymore, and you go back to doing the same thing. What other choice do you have? I mean, do you think Adam Silver wanted to find him? He had no other choice but to. He got to set that example. You think, and like you said before, Mr. Bennett, if David Stern was still alive, was still commissioner, he probably would have dropped the hammer on him, suspended him for the rest of the season, just to send that message to a lot of these players that, listen, you guys represent not just your individual clubs, but you represent the NBA as a whole. And people forget what Commissioner Stern has done to clean up the NBA when he took over for Larry O'Brien. People forget that championship, that NBA Finals were on tape delay. People forget that they didn't have the TV deals that they have now because a lot of players were getting off the court issues, had drug problems, so on and so forth. And it took David Stern a significant amount of time to get things on the right track, to clean things up, to get everything in order, to help lay the foundation to where the NBA is. He basically put it in a very good situation to where Adam Silver came in and made it a much better situation. And just for proof to show how good of a mentor David Stern was, one of his key staff members became commissioner of the National Hockey League. His name's Gary Bettman. Yeah, I got to throw that in there too. But that just shows how well that just shows how well of a disciplinarian, how someone of an organizer and someone who knows how to take over a situation and bring order to chaos was David Stern. And probably just because also he's a Jersey guy. He's from Rutgers. He graduated from Rutgers too. But
are you?
He got it done. He set that standard. He laid that foundation, and Adam Silver's just following along. All I'm saying to Ja is, think about a lot of things you're doing on the court that's going to draw attention, especially in the negative way. You got to look at that. But my thing is, hopefully, this is a teachable moment. Hopefully, this becomes a situation to where he looks at it and just says, you know what?
Folks said that.
Yeah, we can't. It is what it is.
But you know what? He's got to put it into practice. I get you, Sean.
He's a grown man.
Before we get to coach, just want to, because I know Dante, you really wanted to be on tonight. I know you guys were talking last week about the Dallas Stars and the fan base in the DFW. I'll leave that to you guys to hash it out. But it's saying the Stars, but the Metroplex is down on the Mavs bad. Stars have a chance to make the playoffs and take the third spot. So I guess hockey is growing, I guess, in the DFW area as a fan base.
That's Mike Modano.
So we'll see. We'll see. But with
that was Mike Modano. He did it.
There you go.
So,
there you go.
It's all good.
Coach, why don't you close us out as always, sir?
Well, just to touch on Ja, he's a grown man. He better grow up fast. No more excuses. But if you have a son or daughter that's interested in sport, teach them sportsmanship first. Whether you played the game or not, teach them sportsmanship first. It's just unfortunate. However, this is springtime, man. Everybody go outside. Get some sunshine. Get some sun rays, man. Get some vitamin D in all your Anton. Listen, I'm not talking to you. To all our little slow-ass kids, get our little slow-ass kids outside so they can exercise and run and jump and burn out the ADHD so they can come home, take a good hot bath, eat, go to bed, be well rested for school. We're on the last little few weeks of school. Everybody's grades should be up to par so they can have a good summer. Don't be rewarding your kids for bad behavior, and if they didn't do their work, no, they don't get nothing to the next school year. They can wear that same old school stuff. But man, it's a good time, man.
No sneakers. No new sneakers for September. No Jordan.
Right. Get in shape, man. Exercise, man. I just had a good friend, man. He's 50 years old, man. Just passed yesterday, man. So listen, man. For your health, man. Get your checkups. Get your prostate, your colon checked. Get everything checked, man. Take your vitamins, your meds, whatever. Get your release on, but just do something to make sure that we here, man. Protect our families, man. And, salute to the Gen Xers, man, because we always strong. Right. Everybody else catch up, man. Catch up, man, for real, man. Great show,
for those
man.
Kids, and for those kids, if you have to wear those same sneakers that you wore last year, make sure you get that Comet cleanser and that toothbrush. OGs, Gen X, we know what we're talking about here. So shout out to the chat. Shout out to you guys. Were fantastic tonight. Shout out to this panel. Thank you, Brother Hink. Again, follow Hink on Hink in the Basement on his show. But until next time, you guys take care. God bless. And we'll see you next time. Take care.
Yeah, peace.
Later.